Downtown traffic screeched to a halt. Sirens wailed. In the middle of the intersection sat a sobbing blind girl, clutching her service dog as armed officers closed in. What happened next would silence the city and left everyone speechless. The city was waking slowly, the way it always did when the first rays of sunlight slid between tall glass buildings. Delivery trucks hissed to the curb, coffee carts rattled open, and the low hum of traffic began to rise like a steady heartbeat. Among the early commuters, a small figure stepped confidently onto the crosswalk at Pine and 7th. 8-year-old Lily adjusted her light blue backpack and held the slender white cane that guided each measured step. Beside her padded Max, a German shepherd wearing a black K9 service harness. His nose twitched as he scanned every shift in scent and sound, ears flicking with quiet alertness. For Lily, mornings like this were a familiar dance of rhythm and trust. Though she had been blind since birth, she loved the independence their routine gave her. Max slowed at every curb, nudged gently when the pedestrian light beeped green, and matched her pace perfectly. The pair moved as one, girl and dog stitched together by years of training and a bond deeper than words. People along the route often paused to smile, admiring the grace of their partnership, then hurried on with their own busy plans. Today should have been no different. The air carried the usual hints of roasted beans and morning rain, and Lily hummed softly, feeling the warmth of the sun across her face. Max's leash rested easy in her hand, yet a subtle tension stirred beneath the ordinary. The dog's gait shifted almost imperceptibly, a half-beat quicker, then slower, as though measuring something invisible in the breeze. Lily sensed it, a tiny tug in the handle that told her Max was reading the street with unusual care. She tilted her head, listening. Far away, a siren wailed and then faded. Nothing unusual, she thought. But Max's body stayed taut, every muscle poised. A low vibration of energy passed through the leash, a silent signal only she could feel. The city still looked like any other morning to those with sight. But to Lily and Max, the air itself seemed to be holding its breath. Something unseen was beginning to stir, and the quiet routine of their day was about to break forever. Max's pace slowed to a deliberate crawl as they approached the next block, the rubber tip of Lily's cane tapping softly against the sidewalk. Normally he walked with steady confidence, but now his movements were stop and start, like a dancer waiting for an unheard cue. Lily paused and tightened her grip on the harness. "What is it, boy?" she whispered. The dog didn't sit or give his usual signal for an obstacle. Instead, he lifted his nose, sniffing the air in short, sharp bursts. A low, almost imperceptible rumble vibrated in his chest. The sound was so faint Lily felt it more than heard it, like the distant roll of a hidden storm. She cocked her head, listening for something, anything that might explain his unease. The city offered only its familiar chorus. The hiss of buses, a distant car horn, the faint chatter of people heading to work. Yet there was an undercurrent she couldn't name, an emptiness beneath the noise. It raised goosebumps on her arms. Max tugged slightly to the left, steering her away from their normal route. This wasn't a casual detour. His movements were urgent, precise. Lily hesitated. "Are you sure?" she asked, though she trusted his instincts more than her own doubts. He pulled again, firmer this time, muscles taut under her hand. Something out there was wrong. She could feel it in the leash and the charged air pressing around them. A sudden gust carried an unfamiliar scent, metallic and sharp, that even Lily could catch. Max's ears shot forward. He let out a short warning bark, a rare sound from a dog trained to stay silent. The bark echoed between the tall buildings, startling a few early pedestrians who turned to look. Her heart quickened. Nothing visible explained the change, but the message was clear. Danger was near. Lily swallowed hard, her free hand brushing the small emergency whistle clipped to her backpack. Max stood rigid at her side, eyes locked on something she couldn't see, every muscle drawn tight like a coiled spring. Whatever was coming had already reached them in ways only he could sense, and their calm morning was slipping into something far more ominous. The next sound broke the morning like shattering glass. A police siren wailed, closer and sharper than the distant hum they'd heard before, followed by the squeal of brakes. Lily stiffened as the vibrations of heavy engines pulsed through the pavement. Max braced beside her, lowering his body as if to shield her from an unseen force. The air seemed to thicken with urgency. Tires screeched. Doors slammed. Shouts erupted from multiple directions. "Stay where you are! Don't move!" An amplified voice commanded, slicing through the city noise. Lily's heart hammered. She tightened her grip on Max's harness, the white cane trembling in her other hand. Confusion tangled in her chest. She hadn't done anything. Why were they shouting at her? Max barked once, deep and resonant, his stance widening protectively. Around them, hurried footsteps closed in. Lily could hear heavy boots pounding the crosswalk, each step louder and more deliberate than the last. She turned her head, trying to place the voices, but they seemed to come from all sides at once. Another sharp order rang out. "Drop the leash and step back," a different officer yelled, the tone clipped and urgent. The words sliced her with fear. Drop the leash? Max was her lifeline. Letting go wasn't an option. She clutched tighter, shaking her head instinctively. I can't," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. The city's everyday rhythm dissolved into chaos. Car horns blared as traffic stalled. Passers-by gasped and murmured, their footsteps retreating to the sidewalks. Somewhere close, a metallic clack echoed, the unmistakable sound of weapons being readied. Lily's stomach knotted. Max shifted slightly forward, issuing a low growl that vibrated through the harness and into her palm. He wasn't aggressive. He was on high alert, reading the tension that charged the air like static before a storm. Lily drew a shaky breath. Whatever had pulled those police cars to a screeching halt, whatever danger they thought they saw, was aimed directly at her and the one creature she trusted most. Their quiet morning had vanished. In its place stood a wall of sirens, commands, and the terrifying unknown. Put your hands where we can see them. Another voice barked, this one closer and vibrating with urgency. Lily flinched. I can't see you, she pleaded, voice breaking. Her white cane trembled in her grasp. Max pressed against her legs, solid and unyielding, his body a living barrier. The city around them felt suddenly alien. Horns blaring in panic, echoes bouncing between glass towers like a storm of sound. Boots scraped against asphalt. Radios crackled. One officer shouted conflicting instructions over another. Drop the leash. Stay still. Move back from the dog. The jumble of commands collided in Lily's ears until they became a single roar of panic. She couldn't tell which direction was safe, which voice to obey. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her fingertips. Max let out a deep, rolling growl, low but unmistakable. He didn't lunge. He simply anchored himself, his front paws planted like steel. Lily gripped the harness tighter. He's trained. Please, he's not dangerous, she cried, desperate to cut through the chaos. But her words seemed to vanish under the metallic click of a weapon chambering around. The sound was unmistakable and it froze her breath. From the surrounding sidewalks, onlookers gasped. A child whimpered. Someone shouted, "She's blind!" But the noise of the crowd only seemed to feed the tension. Orders flew back and forth between officers. Hold your position. We need backup. Secure the perimeter! Each command added a fresh layer of confusion. Max's ears flicked toward every voice, calculating. His tail was still, his body coiled like a spring ready to react. But his eyes never left the shifting air between them and the unknown threat. Lily could feel his heart racing through the harness, yet his steady presence steadied her own. She raised her trembling voice above the din. Please, tell me what's happening. No answer came. Only the electric buzz of radios and the heavy breathing of men poised for action. The intersection, once a simple crossing on their daily route, had turned into a tense battlefield where a single wrong move could ignite consequences none of them could undo. The commotion drew people from every corner of the block. Office workers with steaming coffee cups, delivery cyclists mid-route, and tourists fresh from their hotels all drifted toward the flashing lights. Cell phones appeared like tiny stars, cameras lifted high to capture the unfolding standoff. Within moments, the quiet intersection transformed into a restless amphitheater. 100 murmuring witnesses circling the scene. Snippets of conversation floated through the air, carried on nervous whispers. Is that girl Malone? Someone asked. Why are the cops aiming at her dog? Another voice questioned. A man near the crosswalk speculated loudly. Must be a dangerous animal. They wouldn't be shouting like that otherwise. Others argued back, pointing to Lily's white cane and Max's harness-marked service dog. Each new theory added a layer of confusion, feeding the rumor mill that buzzed faster than the sirens themselves. Social media lit up in real time. Strangers on sidewalks narrated live streams. their voices overlapping with the urgent crackle of police radios. "Downtown standoff," one vlogger announced breathlessly to her camera. Blind girl and a canine, no one knows why the cops are surrounding them. The algorithm carried her words outward, like sparks on dry grass. Lily could sense the growing audience without seeing it, the hushed gasps, the shifting of shoes on pavement, the constant click of camera shutters. The sound pressed in from all sides, a soft but insistent wall. Max's ears pivoted restlessly, catching every movement, his muscles never relaxing. The police, aware of countless eyes recording, stiffened their formation. An officer barked fresh orders to maintain a perimeter, but even as they widened the cordon, the crowd crept closer, curiosity stronger than caution. Every second stretched long and brittle, a silence punctuated only by the distant wail of a siren racing somewhere else. Within that tense circle stood Lily and Max, still, small and unknowingly at the heart of a digital storm. Each passing moment multiplied speculation, but no explanation came. The city's ordinary morning had become a spectacle, and what began as a simple walk now felt like the opening scene of something far larger and more dangerous than anyone yet understood. The world around Lily pulsed with sound and vibration, every detail magnified by the absence of sight. She could feel the heat of the sun on her face, but also the colder shadows shifting as officers moved around her. The air itself seemed charged, buzzing with tension. She caught the sharp tang of gasoline from the idling police cars and the faint, acrid scent of overheated brakes. Each smell was a clue, but none explained why she and Max were at the center of this storm. Her ears strained for order in the chaos. The heavy thud of boots on asphalt told her when an officer shifted position. The click of a weapon's safety echoed like a thunderclap in her chest. Somewhere nearby, a woman's voice trembled. "She's just a kid," and then faded into a nervous cough. Lily's heart pounded faster with every layer of sound, a rhythm that felt too loud inside her own body. Max's breathing anchored her. The slow in and out of his chest pressed against her leg like a metronome of calm, even as his muscles stayed taut. She crouched slightly, resting a hand on his thick fur. "Good boy. We're okay," she whispered, though her voice shook. The contact grounded her in a reality she could trust. Max was still there, still steady, still hers. Yet beneath that small comfort ran a current of helplessness she'd never known. Blindness had never truly frightened her before. She had built a life of confidence and independence. But this was different. Commands flew at her from invisible sources. Danger radiated from places she couldn't map. Every sense screamed that one wrong move could snap the fragile balance. She thought of her parents at home, unaware that an ordinary walk had turned into a siege. The image of her mother's morning call replayed. "Be careful crossing the busy streets, sweetheart," and almost broke her resolve. But Max's quiet strength held her upright. Lily drew a trembling breath, tightened her grip on his harness, and listened harder. Somewhere in the overlapping voices and echoing sirens hid the reason for this sudden nightmare. She just had to find it before the next command shattered everything. Max stood like a statue beside Lily, every sense sharpened to a fine edge. His ears flicked independently, tracking the smallest noises, the metallic clink of a belt buckle, the distant rattle of a delivery cart, the uneven footstep of someone shifting their weight behind the line of officers. His nose quivered, sifting through the layered scents of hot asphalt, exhaust fumes, and something faintly chemical that didn't belong. Each breath carried information only he could decipher, a code of warning that tightened the air around him. Though trained to remain calm under pressure, Max felt a different kind of urgency thrumming through his muscles. This wasn't the routine chaos of a crowded street. Something specific, something hidden, pulsed just beyond sight. His amber eyes darted from shadowed doorways to the base of parked vehicles, never resting for long. A soft growl, low and deliberate, rumbled in his chest. Not a threat, but a signal of discovery. Lily's hand rested on his back, and he sensed her quickening heartbeat. He leaned slightly into her leg, a wordless promise of protection. At the same time, he adjusted his stance, placing his body between her and the nearest cluster of officers. Each shift of weight was precise, one paw forward, head slightly lowered, tail perfectly still. To the untrained eye, he might seem defiant, but every movement was calculation, shielding her without provoking a charge. The sounds of the crowd meant little to Max. What mattered were subtler cues. A sudden metallic click somewhere to the right made his ears snap toward the source. A trace of sharp ozone on the wind prickled his nose. He inhaled again, mapping the direction, his mind narrowing to a single point of focus. The tension coiled tighter, an instinct older than training guiding him. Through the harness, Max transmitted his message in silent language. A firm lean, a gentle but insistent pull that said, "Stay close, danger near." He waited, heart steady but alert, knowing that whatever threat lay hidden was drawing closer. The world of scent and sound told him what human eyes and words could not, that the real danger of this morning had yet to reveal its face. A sudden burst of radio chatter cracked through the tense silence. Static hissed, followed by an urgent male voice. "Unit 4, suspect may be armed. Repeat, armed. Approach with caution." The words carried like a spark through dry leaves. Officers stiffened. Several shifted their footing, and Lily heard the scrape of boots on asphalt as a semicircle tightened around her. She flinched at the next command. "Ma'am, drop the leash now," one officer barked louder than before. Another voice overlapped instantly. "Stay exactly where you are." The two orders clashed like cymbals in her ears, leaving no safe choice. Lily clutched Max's harness tighter, her voice shaking. "Please, I don't have anything." "I don't understand what you think I've done." Max responded with a short, sharp bark, his tail rigid. The sound wasn't aggression but warning, a protective echo of the danger he sensed. Yet to the officers it rang like defiance. "Control the dog," someone shouted, the clatter of gear punctuating every syllable. A metallic snap, the unmistakable racking of a firearm made Lily's knees weaken. Behind the barricade of uniforms, whispered theories spread fast. "Is that really a service animal?" someone questioned. Another muttered, "Maybe the harness is a cover, could be a weapon." Each murmur layered onto the officer's growing unease. The tension fed itself, turning uncertainty into threat. A gust of wind funneled through the street, carrying the faint chemical tang Max had sensed earlier. He shifted, pressing harder into Lily's legs and emitting a low growl. She felt the vibration through the harness, his body language screaming danger, but his stillness misread as aggression. "Hold fire, but be ready," a commanding voice ordered. Radios clicked as backup units acknowledged. From all sides, Lily heard the tightening of a net she could not see. Her pulse raced. Every second stretched long and fragile, like a glass about to shatter. She whispered to Max, "Stay with me," even as the wall of sound, orders, whispers, weapons closed tighter. Somewhere in the confusion, the real threat that only Max understood moved closer, hidden behind layers of human misunderstanding and fear. While every eye locked on the tense standoff, the street itself held secrets few noticed. A delivery van idled half a block away, engine running though no driver was visible. Its hazard lights blinked in a slow, uneven rhythm. 2 flashes, then a pause, as if signaling something unseen. A faint metallic rattle echoed from inside the cargo hold, almost lost beneath the police commands and the murmuring crowd. Above, a traffic camera rotated strangely off its usual arc, pausing at angles that didn't match the programmed sweep. Each mechanical whir came a heartbeat late, like a watch ticking out of time. Nearby, a man in a dark hoodie stood motionless near a bus shelter. He wasn't filming like everyone else. Instead, his gaze darted between the van and the growing circle of police, fingers tapping an anxious rhythm on his sleeve. Max noticed first. His head turned sharply toward the van, ears pricking. He inhaled deeply, then exhaled in a low growl. Lily felt the subtle shift through the harness, a tug not of panic but of focus. He wasn't reacting to the officers now. Something else held his attention, something hidden beyond their ring of uniforms. A second clue whispered through the air, a faint hiss like compressed gas leaking. No one else seemed to hear it over the chaos, but to Max it was a glaring signal. He pivoted slightly, positioning himself between Lily and the direction of that sound. The crowd's chatter blurred into static in his mind. Every instinct sharpened toward the van and the figure by the shelter. One officer, catching the dog's sudden reorientation, raised his voice. The animal's agitated, possible threat nearby. He warned into his radio, but the statement drowned beneath overlapping commands. Few paid attention to where Max now stared. Lily sensed the change too. "What is it, boy?" she whispered, heart pounding. She could feel his body harden like steel. The world around her still screamed of police and confusion, but Max's unshakable focus pointed to a different danger altogether. one quietly ticking in the background while everyone else looked the wrong way. The intersection fell into a strange, brittle quiet, as if the city itself had paused to listen. Sirens still wailed in the distance, but here every sound felt sharpened and deliberate. Officers tightened their half-circle, boots grinding against asphalt. Their radios spat clipped bursts of code, each reply shorter and harder than the last. The crowd held its breath, phones lifted like a forest of tiny mirrors. Lily's heart hammered. She could sense the shift in air pressure as bodies moved closer, the faint heat of weapons raised and ready. "Please," she called out, voice quivering but loud enough to carry. "I don't understand what you want from me." No answer came, only the cold echo of her own words bouncing off concrete and glass. Max remained a wall of muscle and purpose. He lowered his head slightly and tightened the line of his shoulders, his eyes fixed on the unseen van and the hooded figure beyond. The faint chemical scent still threaded through the air, sharper now, and he caught it with every breath. Yet his stance was measured, alert but disciplined, every movement chosen to protect, not provoke. A single command cracked the silence. "Hold your ground," the lead officer barked, his tone a blend of caution and authority. Another voice over the radio countered. "Suspect vehicle may contain hazardous materials. Contain the area. Do not let anyone leave." The words sliced through Lily like icy wind. Hazardous materials? Was that what Max had been sensing all along? The crowd murmured anxiously. Someone whispered, "There's something in that van." A child began to cry, quickly hushed by a parent. The city block felt smaller with every breath, as though invisible walls were closing in. Lily crouched slightly, pressing both hands into Max's fur. The steady thrum of his heartbeat under her palms became her only compass. Whatever danger lay ahead, she knew he had already chosen his course, to shield her until the very end. The standoff stretched, every second brittle with possibility, as the true source of danger pulsed just beyond the police line, waiting to reveal itself. A sudden metallic clang shattered the uneasy stillness. From the direction of the idling van came a loud, hollow bang, like something heavy dropping inside the cargo hold. Max's ears shot forward and he lunged a single step, stopping only when the harness tightened against Lily's grasp. His sharp bark ripped through the air, deep and commanding. "Stay back," an officer shouted, voice cracking with urgency. Another radioed frantically, "Possible explosive, sound inside vehicle." The single phrase sent a ripple of alarm through the circle. Weapons rose higher, safeties clicked, and the crowd gasped as a wave of frightened whispers rolled outward. Lily's breath caught. She couldn't see the van or the man by the shelter, but she felt the shift instantly. The air grew hotter, tighter, as though the entire block was inhaling and holding its breath. "Max?" she whispered, fingers gripping the harness until her knuckles ached. He answered with a low, vibrating growl and pressed his body against hers, signaling danger close. Without warning, one officer misread the dog's sudden tension. Believing Max was preparing to attack, he stepped forward quickly, hand outstretched to grab the leash. "Control the animal," he barked. The movement triggered a chain reaction. Other officers surged a half-step closer, weapons trained, their boots pounding the pavement in unison. The crowd erupted in alarm. "Stop, don't hurt them," someone screamed. A child began to cry and the sound sliced through the heavy air. Lily instinctively crouched lower, wrapping both arms around Max's neck. "He's protecting me," she cried out, desperate and raw. "Please don't hurt him." For a heartbeat, the world seemed to teeter. The van's engine rattled in uneven spurts. The hooded figure near the bus shelter shifted nervously, almost imperceptibly, but Max's sharp eyes locked on him like a spotlight. Every muscle in the dog's body quivered, ready to react. The next second could decide everything, whether a misunderstanding would explode into tragedy or reveal the deeper threat only Max truly sensed. The intersection held its breath, balanced on the knife edge of action and revelation, as the breaking point loomed closer than ever. The tense silence fractured with a sound that was almost too faint to catch. A hiss, thin and high like air escaping from a punctured tire. Max's ears twitched sharply. He turned his head toward the van, nostrils flaring, then swung back to the hooded figure by the bus shelter. A sudden chemical sting flooded his nose, stronger than before, sharp enough to burn. He barked once, loud and urgent, the kind of bark his training reserved for imminent danger. Lily felt the vibration through the harness and knew instantly. This wasn't fear. It was a warning. "What is it, boy?" she whispered, her voice trembling but steady enough for him to hear. Max gave a firm tug toward the sound, planting his paws like anchors, then leaning forward again. It was a signal they'd practiced, a silent message of there, now, danger. A gust of wind carried the acrid odor to the police line. One officer recoiled, coughing. "Smell that? Chemical, strong!" he called out. Another repeated into his radio. "Possible chemical agent detected. Hazard level high. Secure the van and shelter area immediately." His words sliced through the confusion like lightning, shifting the officer's focus in an instant. The man in the hoodie twitched at the sudden attention. He took a half-step backward, hand diving into his pocket. Max exploded into a sharp, commanding bark, lunging forward with a force that pulled Lily a crucial inch to the side. At that exact moment, a muffled pop echoed from inside the van, followed by a thin ribbon of smoke curling from its rear door. The crowd shrieked. Officers sprang into coordinated motion, two racing toward the hooded man while others formed a protective wall around Lily and Max. The lead officer shouted, "Evacuate the block." "Possible chemical explosive." His voice carried authority that cut through every lingering doubt. Lily clung to Max, heart pounding, understanding at last that his every growl and tug had pointed to this hidden danger. What she could not see, he had sensed from the very beginning. In that breathless moment, confusion gave way to clarity. Max had been fighting to save lives long before anyone else understood the threat. Chaos ignited in every direction. Officers shouted into radios summoning bomb disposal teams and hazmat units. The crowd scattered in panicked waves, shoes slapping the pavement as people fled the block. The man in the hoodie bolted, but two officers tackled him within seconds. A metallic clatter hit the ground, a small black device skidding across the concrete. Gasps rippled through those still nearby. Max never wavered. He stood between Lily and the danger, muscles locked, gaze fixed on the smoking van. The faint hiss had grown into an ominous crackle. Lily crouched lower, her fingers gripping his harness until they ached. "Stay with me, Max," she whispered, though it felt more like a plea to the universe. The lead officer approached cautiously, his voice steadier now. "Ma'am, listen carefully. We believe there is a chemical device inside that van. Your dog, he's been alerting us from the start." His words sank into Lily like cold rain. Max hadn't been reacting to the officers at all. He'd been fighting to draw everyone's attention to the real threat. Bomb technicians in heavy suits rushed in, rolling specialized equipment. A mechanical arm extended toward the van's rear door. As the device pried it open, a sharp chemical odor flooded the air, making nearby officers cover their faces. Inside, they found a jury-rigged tank of industrial-grade ammonia attached to a timed-release system, a crude but dangerous chemical bomb meant to vent a poisonous cloud through the busy district. The officer's voice cracked slightly as he relayed the discovery over the radio. "Confirmed chemical dispersal device. Timer partially active. If that service dog hadn't alerted..." He trailed off, glancing at Max with something close to awe. The hooded man struggled against his captors, shouting incoherently about revenge and chaos, but his words blurred into the background. All Lily could hear was the pounding of her own heart and the steady breathing of the dog who had saved them all. Tears welled as the truth settled in. Every bark, every pull of the harness, every unyielding stand had been Max's desperate attempt to steer her, and everyone else away from catastrophe. When the bomb squad finally disabled the device, applause erupted from the edges of the crowd that had dared to stay. Officers lowered their weapons. Some approached Lily with voices softer now, full of apology and gratitude. "Your dog is a hero," one said, his earlier tension replaced with open admiration. Lily hugged Max, burying her face in his thick fur. "You knew," she whispered, her voice trembling with relief and pride. In that instant, the entire chaotic morning clicked into place. Max hadn't just saved her, he had saved an entire city block. The real story wasn't about a police confrontation at all, but about a service dog's unshakable instinct to protect, even when no one else believed him. Blue and red lights flickered across nearby windows as the last of the crowd was guided to safety. The once chaotic intersection slowly exhaled, leaving behind a hum of distant sirens and the metallic scent of neutralizing chemicals. Lily sat on the back bumper of an ambulance. Max pressed close to her side, his steady warmth grounding her in the middle of it all. Medics wrapped a light blanket around her shoulders, checking her pulse and blood pressure. "You're safe now," one of them assured softly, though Lily knew the real reassurance sat at her feet, tail resting still but alert. A police captain approached, helmet tucked under his arm. His earlier barked commands were gone. In their place was a quiet humility. "Miss, I owe you and your service dog an apology," he said, voice low and steady. "We misread the situation. Without Max, we might never have caught the warning signs in time." Lily reached down to stroke Max's neck, feeling the gentle rise and fall of his breath. "He just did what he's trained to do," she murmured, though her heart swelled with gratitude and pride. Nearby, bomb technicians secured the disabled chemical device in a sealed container. One of them paused to look over, giving Max a small salute. "That dog saved a lot of lives today," he said to no one in particular, the weight of the statement hanging in the crisp afternoon air. Reporters, held at a distance during the emergency, now began to gather carefully at the edges of the scene. Microphones and cameras pointed toward Lily, but every question, "How did he know?" "What did you feel?" faded beneath the soft thud of Max's heartbeat against her leg. She answered what she could in simple words. "I trusted him. He trusted me. That's how we live every day." Several officers knelt to offer Max a gentle pat, some with watery eyes. One handed Lily a small bottle of water and said quietly, "You both turned fear into hope for this whole city." The captain promised a formal commendation and resources for Max's continued care. But for Lily, the truest reward was far more personal. The certainty that their bond, built in silent signals and absolute trust, had protected not only her life, but countless strangers. As dusk settled, the street slowly reopened. The danger was gone, yet the memory of those tense hours would remain. Lily rested her head lightly on Max's, whispering, "You're my hero, always." The German shepherd gave a soft, contented sigh, as if to say the mission was complete. Around them, the city carried on, unaware of just how close it had come to disaster and how a single service dog had quietly kept it safe. The next morning dawned quiet and bright, as if the city itself needed a fresh start. News vans lined the block where the incident had unfolded. Their satellite dishes pointed skyward. Headlines blazed across screens. "Service dog foils chemical attack. Blind girl and hero canine save hundreds." What had begun as a frightening confrontation now rippled outward as a story of courage and instinct. At Lily's small apartment, bouquets of flowers and handwritten notes filled the entryway. Neighbors stopped by to offer hugs and tears of gratitude. Someone had even left a basket of Max's favorite treats with a simple card that read, "Thank you, hero." Lily's parents sat close beside her, still shaken but endlessly proud, their hands never straying far from hers. Later that week, city officials held a brief ceremony at the precinct. The police captain who once barked orders now stepped forward with a medal and a soft smile. "Today we honor Max," he said, voice carrying through the crowd. "His extraordinary vigilance saved lives and reminded us all to look beyond first impressions." The medal, engraved with valor and service, gleamed as he clipped it to Max's harness. Cameras flashed, but Max sat calmly, tail wagging just once, as if accepting the praise on behalf of every working dog who had ever stood silently between danger and safety. Lily spoke only a few words, but they echoed long after the ceremony ended. "I trust Max with my life every day," she said, her voice steady. "Yesterday he trusted his instincts even when people doubted him. That trust saved us all." As evening fell, Lily and Max took their usual walk, the city's sounds now carrying a new warmth. Pedestrians recognized them and offered quiet thanks, but she and Max moved at their familiar rhythm, girl and dog side by side. The chaos was over, but its lesson lingered. Sometimes the truest guardians are those who speak no words, only act with unwavering love. The world would remember the day a blind girl and her service dog changed the fate of an entire city, one silent signal at a time.